The death of democracy. Such an idea has become prevalent in our modern political discourse. Fears over how and why democratic systems fall, and whether or not our own may be vulnerable to such a fate. But there exists perhaps no better case study for the fall of democracy than the Weimar Republic in Germany. Established in the wake of the First World War and the fall of the German monarchy, the Weimar Republic was one of the most democratic establishments of its time. But after just barely over 2 decades, it was replaced with the fascist totalitarian dictatorship of Adolf Hitler. The subsequent war and genocides are forever etched into the human consciousness for their brutality and incredible death toll. But what if this was not the case? What if the Weimar Republic survived into the 1930s and beyond? What if Germany never fell to fascism? Do you have a suggestion for a future video? Do you want a place to discuss history and other topics with me and other fans of the history genre? Then join the That Annoying American Discord server. Link in the pinned comment as well as the description. But how did the Weimar Republic fall? Following Germany's lengthy defeat in the First World War, the German people were done with monarchy. After the abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II and several revolutions, the government that eventually came to assert its control over Germany was a republic, declared in the city of Weimar. This is where Germany in this time period gets its name, but it is worth mentioning this was not its official title, and its capital was still located in Berlin. The 1920s saw this fledgling republic faced with the aftermath of losing a world war, insane amounts of war debt, and a destroyed industry. The government turned to printing money to repay its dues. This led to an astronomical amount of inflation, with one loaf of bread coming to cost billions of marks. And no, that is not an exaggeration. This, however, was not the end of the Republic. With some skilled foreign policy and aid from the Americans, the Weimar Republic's economy was able to recover, albeit on the back of American funding. Such a flaw would rear its ugly head when the American economy would crash during the Great Depression circa 1929, dragging Germany down with it. Pair this with the fractured government's inability to work together and address the crisis, and come 1933, Adolf Hitler is appointed Chancellor, after his party, the NSDAP, became the largest in the German parliament. Within a year, he would consolidate near total control, dissolving German democracy and declaring himself Führer of the Third Reich. So how could this republic have survived? Firstly, I am going to remove Hitler, and I'm going to do so in a very specific way. You see, Hitler's National Socialists were not the only force in Germany that wished to seize absolute control. Enter the Communist Party of Germany. The Communists were very similar in operation to the National Socialists in that they called for the disestablishment of the Weimar Republic and had a paramilitary wing dedicated to using violence to gain political capital. The difference is while the democratic forces of Germany didn't take the Nazis as a serious threat until it was too late, they were scared to death of the communists. So much so that it may be our ticket to forcing cooperation between the democratic parties in the Weimar Republic. The year is 1923, and just as in our timeline, Hitler tries and fails to overthrow the democratic government during the Beer Hall Putsch. The difference is this time he is not stopped and arrested by the police. No, the police join Hitler. It is the communists with their paramilitary wing that ends the coup, killing Hitler in the process. Following this event, the communists gained major clout with the German public, scaring the other parties of Germany. Come the 1924 Reichstag election, a grand coalition is formed to counter communist influence. In the 1925 presidential election, Wilhelm Marx of the Center Party is elected instead of Paul von Hindenburg, who was never very pro-democracy in our timeline. Lastly, and most importantly, the Great Depression never happens. Is this a massive change with massive global effects? Yes. However, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go into depth on why this doesn't happen. The US economy just doesn't collapse in 1929. Germany is able to continue recovering and pay off its debt to the Allies. Come 1933, German democracy is stable once more. Removing Hitler and his Third Reich from the Europe of the 1930s obviously has massive effects on history. The main instigators of the Second World War are gone. How would this alternate world play out? Italy is left as the only major fascist nation in Europe. It forms a close relationship with Austria, Hungary, and Albania. Without support from the Germans, the nationalists lose the Spanish Civil War, re-establishing the Republic. In 1937, Japan still invades China and sweeps across the east of the country, committing horrifying war crimes as they advance. Within the year, Italy annexes Albania. Britain and France implement the same strategy of appeasement as they did in our timeline, continuing as the Soviets strong-arm Romania into handing over Bessarabia. In response to Soviet aggression, Poland, who remains a military power in the east of Europe without the invasion from Germany, forms an alliance with Romania, as well as the Baltic states, promising defense from the Red Menace. In 1941, the Japanese still attack the Americans and British. I see this as an inevitability. The Japanese were starved for resources. They needed to seize the rich lands to their south. Not only this, the Japanese truly believed that with the help of a surprise attack, they could defeat the Americans and British, and that they would simply roll over and submit. With the West distracted, the Germans negotiate a limited remilitarization of their country. By the 1940s, Germany has near completely recovered, and its economy is soaring. Germany has once again become one of the richest lands in the world. Japan is eventually defeated, though probably without the use of a nuclear weapon. With the smaller scale of the war, I doubt the Americans would pursue such a program with enough emphasis to complete the bomb before Japan is defeated. Japan surrenders in 1944 alongside a Soviet invasion of Manchuria, and America tests its first nuclear weapon in 1946. Speaking of China, the Communists are able to defeat the Nationalists and seize control of the nation, beginning a new Red Scare in Europe and America. The French, without being destroyed by World War II, reassert their control over Vietnam, helping the Dutch do the same in Indonesia. Imperialism will continue with much more vigor in this timeline, without the destruction brought onto Western empires by World War II. It is now that the Soviets test their own nuclear weapon, scaring the West further. Western politics are generally shifted further to the right than in our own timeline, with such fears of communism and without the horrors of Nazism. Italy and America become allies in the face of the Soviets. Europe is united against the Russian threat. With such unity, and with the last World War being over 3 decades ago, I believe World War II would break out against the Soviet Union by the non-communist powers, perhaps in the early 1950s, with the Korean War acting as the fuse. The war would see the usage of tactical nuclear weapons, leading to a large loss of civilian life, especially in Europe. But eventually, the Soviets are defeated. A capitalist, imperialist world order is established. As for Germany, by the 1950s, it is one of the largest economies in the world. It's rebuilt its military, and its democracy is strong and hardy. Its citizens can live their lives without the horrors of the Nazi Party weighing on their conscience. This, for Germany at least, is most definitely the good ending. But it is not the only path a non-fascist Germany could have taken, and very soon we shall explore another.